Hello folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. I have a question, and it's a genuine question. I'm looking forward to seeing what you all say in the comments section of this video about this. Do you think that the British Boxing Board of Control, or as wags will say, the British Boxing Board of No Control, do you think that they treat all fighters even-handedly? Do they treat all fighters the same, regardless of where they come from, who they are managed by, what their box rec is, who their promoters are? So you think about your local police. You know, you would expect to be able to go to your local police and be treated the same regardless of your socioeconomic circumstances, your postal code, your ethnic background, your professed faith or no faith. You would expect, whether it's reporting a crime or seeking some other form of police assistance, that the police officers at the desk would treat you the same, regardless of your gender or your orientation, whatever, right? Likewise, if you've done something wrong, let's say speeding, you would expect the officer to treat you the same, regardless of whether you're driving a very expensive car or a lesser automobile or a truck or an EV. And likewise, you know, they shouldn't make any distinction between, you know, a person because of their gender or age or anything, right? Well, the British Boxing Board of Control, which I understand is registered as in a certain way, is nevertheless a regulator. It's the same way as, in the same way that a mining regulator or a regulator of a profession would be. You would expect them to deal even-handedly with fighters. And I'm asking this question, it's been on my mind for a while. But recently I saw a very good video put out by my good friend Joe Stunner Boxing. And he was raising the possibility that Chris Eubank Jr. might well be investigated by the regulator. He's a licensed fighter, and so his regulator is the British Boxing Board of Control, over the way in which he lost weight. Now, there are rules about how you can lose weight. You know, you can't sit in a sauna and just, you know, sweat it all out. And you can't wear what are called sweatsuits. You know, in the old days when you went for running, you'd put a bin liner on and, you know, try to sweat a little bit of extra moisture out of you. Well, you know, there are actual sweatsuits, right? Well, Chris Eubank Jr. has been photographed coming out of what appears to be some sort of sweat-inducing item of clothing, which might be in violation of the rules. Now, I'm not saying it is, but it might be. And I was thinking, well, okay, you know, look at things on the face value, not being any sort of conspiracy theorist here. But the British Boxing Board of Control seemed to have no problems with the contract which required him to lose this weight, and then, you know, the imposition of the £10 rehydration clause, which, you know, the IBF would allow 12. And I'm just wondering, because it sort of seems to me a little bit like the British Boxing Board of Control is in some ways picking on Chris Eubank Jr. They fined him, or imposed a financial penalty, but, you know, same, right, of £100,000 when he slapped that egg on Conor Benn's face, which may or may not have been a silly thing to do, may or may not have been staged. I'm not going to get into that. But it seemed excessive. And it just struck me that, okay, he's still a famous fellow, right? I'm not saying he's a poor, impoverished guy being picked on by the big bad regulator. But he doesn't have Matchroom or Queensberry behind him. And he has said rude things. He's used hurty words to describe Eddie Hearn, and for that matter, Frank Warren. He's also actually used slightly hurty words to describe his own promoter, Ben Shalom. But that's neither here nor there. And I was wondering, is there some sort of vendetta? And then I wonder about other instances where, people appear to bring boxing into disrepute, but the British Boxing Board of Control are noticeable by their silence. And we also have the PED issue. And for the life of me, I can't understand why the regulator doesn't publish a list of disciplined persons. Most other regulators worldwide do. They have lists. So, whoever regulates, for example, securities or financial advisors in your jurisdiction will have some sort of published list. So when you're looking to hire a financial advisor, you can go to the regulator's websites and you can say, oh, Joe Bloggs, oh, he was fined for churning accounts, or Alice Smith, oh, she was fined for acting against clients' interest. And realtors, or estate agents as they're called in the UK, they have a similar thing, as do lawyers, as do doctors. Usually if you hold some form of license and you commit some sort of infraction, then there's a list. And it usually is public, and people can go and look at it. But boxing doesn't. So we have people, for example, who are hauled over the coals for some substance use. And it seems to be everybody knows about it. People get long bans. I mean, Liam Cameron, who was banned for cocaine use, I understand it was a second offence. A recreational drug, right? I'm not saying it's good. I'm not suggesting that he didn't do anything wrong or anything like that. But he was, they imposed a 4-year ban. It was a long time anyhow. And other folks, they just don't appear, it's like they're serving a silent ban. There shouldn't be any kind of silent bans. I mean, if someone's banned, it should be, Bill Brown, banned, 2 years, clomiphene use, that sort of thing, right? But it all seems to be depends on who you know, or who you are, or whether you're the A side, or how you put your pants on in the morning. It seems very strange. And it does seem, again, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying it is. What do I know? I don't know anything. It's not like Robert Smith is going to phone me up and say, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just a fan, right? But it seems to me that the British Boxing Board of Control is not even-handed in its dealings with boxers. It certainly doesn't seem to be even-handed in the way it reacts to things which we might say bring the sport into disrepute. You know my feelings about recent press conferences. Are the British Boxing Board of Control overly influenced by promoters, by managers, by fighters who are rich and famous? Let me know what you think in the comments section. I'll leave it there for the moment. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Have a fantastic day wherever you are. And I will see you on the next video. Cheers. Bye-bye.